Tips from Trestle is brought to you by the Belter Companies, Navigator Group Purchasing, eMenu Choice Point of Sale, and Clark Food Service and Equipment. Welcome to Tips from Trestle. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and leadership. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. As a 25-year veteran of the hospitality industry, I've focused my work on creating exceptional experiences for the customers we serve. My goal for this podcast? Educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living to bring food and hospitality to the front of mind in our industry. Let's bring the innovative and passionate spirit of hospitality to everything that we do, for the residents, families, guests, and employees we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, I'm joined by Chef Stephan Pyles and Tiffany Cobern. Chef Pyles is a fifth-generation Texan and founding father of Southwestern Cuisine. He is a celebrated chef, cookbook author, philanthropist, and educator that has created 23 restaurants in 6 cities over the past 32 years. Pyles was the first person in the Southwest to win a James Beard Award for Best Chef and was the first Texan inducted into the Beard Foundation's Who's Who of Food and Wine in America. Bon Appetit magazine has credited Pyles with almost single-handedly changing the cooking scene in Texas, while the New York Times called him an absolute genius in the kitchen. Chef Pyles has been named Esquire magazine's Chef of the Year, and Texas Monthly has named him one of the 20 most influential Texans of the year. A highly successful author and Emmy Award-winning TV host, he was only the 10th chef to be inducted into Nation's Restaurant News' Menu Masters Hall of Fame, joining the ranks of Wolfgang Puck, Paul Prudhomme, and Jeremiah Tower. A tireless philanthropist, Pyles is a founding board member of Share Our Strength, America's largest hunger relief organization, a life board member of the North Texas Food Bank, and has served on the board of Goodwill Industries and the Art Institute. He co-founded the Hunger Link, Dallas's perishable food program that acts as a conduit between restaurants and hotels and ministries and soup kitchens. And through his Stephen Pyles Culinary Scholarship, he has awarded $250,000 to culinary students in Texas. Tiffany Cobern joined MedCore Partners in April 2017 as part of MedCore's mission to develop a comprehensive senior living division. She has more than 2 decades of operations experience in the seniors housing industry and concentrates on pre-development, development, and post-development operating strategies, including managing performance and relationships with the company's MedCore selects to operate its senior living assets. Prior to joining MedCore Partners, Tiffany served in small, medium, and large operating company platforms involved in the independent, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing sectors. She has experience in major metropolitan markets across the country, as well as regional markets outside MSAs. Tiffany has led the startup of 2 senior living companies, as well as having served in numerous positions at the community, regional, and corporate levels of operations. She's a graduate of Texas Tech University with a bachelor's degree in public relations with a marketing minor. She lives in Plano, Texas, and enjoys traveling, sports, entertaining, and reading. Tiffany and Chef Pyles, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
That was my edited bio. I don't even remember.
It was. When I got in touch with Tiffany about the Alma restaurant project, and she said that you guys were working together, she sent me your bio, and I was like, I don't think this speaks well enough to what you do. I'm not a native Texan, but I know who you are. Everybody in Texas knows who you are. And so this is a really cool project you guys are working on. So I'm glad we're talking about it. And so, Tiffany, I wanted to start with you kind of talking a little bit about this concept of retailization of senior living, right? This is something that is coming, right? With tighter margins and, we can't raise rates through the roof. We got to keep it competitive. We got to find better ways to create revenues and create experiences for residents as well. And so, working with Chef Pyles, I want you to kind of give me an idea, how did you guys decide to create a public restaurant attached to your senior living community?
Well, it's got a couple of different origins, I guess you would say. One of which is the recognition, to your point earlier, that as we move into this new generation of seniors, we're also understanding that they have heightened expectations on what the customer experience needs to look like. And so we develop high-end senior living communities. And I just feel like if we're going to say that that's our niche, our niche is high-end senior living, and we want to create a resort-like experience in markets that can support that, that we ought to be pretty intentional about the quality of the product that we bring to their resident experience. And, we've moved out of this greatest generation of customers with the age group that has passed on mostly. And now that we're learning more about baby boomers and their expectations as they come into this sector, what we're finding out is that they're a lot more informed and aware about what their options are. And they don't make any qualms about what their expectations are, which is really kind of great for us because we don't have to do as much digging and prying and, all of that when we discover. So doing our research, we recognized that creating an outstanding culinary experience is top of the list for this new generation that's ushering into our communities. And so the timing of it was, the recognition is there, and the timing of it was such that in 2017 and 2018, we were heavy into the early stages of development of this resort-like community in Georgetown, Texas, just north of Austin. And when we were doing our market research, we spent a lot of time with the homeowners inside Sun City, the Del Webb community that exists there in Georgetown. It's a large Sun City, and it has about 15,000 rooftops. And so as they finish out their very last phase of that Del Webb development, we really have a captive audience because our land site that we've developed on is at the main entrance to the south end of Sun City. And so we've got this captive audience of about 15,000 retirees who are at various stages in deciding to, sell homes or whatnot and simplify their lives. One of the main things that they told us when we did a focus group study back in 2019 was that they had limited food options, limited dining options in that part of the hill country. It was underdeveloped in terms of higher end food options. And they said, I'll never forget this, but they said, it's really frustrating because the closest thing to our homes is the catfish parlor. And we can only eat there so much. And otherwise we have to drive down to Austin or go to some places in Old Town, Georgetown. And so that's really the thing that would move the needle for us, is if we had a place that we lived in that we could invite our friends to and that we could come to, even if we decide it's going to be a while before we move in. If we still are homeowners inside Sun City, we would like to have a new place to go eat. So that immediately got us thinking, if we're designing this resort-like experience and we anticipate having them move in at some time, why not go ahead and introduce a public-facing restaurant connected to this campus so that we can keep our potential future residents engaged from the very beginning?
Yeah, that's such, I'm familiar with Georgetown. My in-laws actually used to live there, and you're absolutely right. The market is perfect for something like that. And so I love the idea of being, forward thinking and saying, how do we build the pipeline out in a unique way? Like, let's not just do the direct mailers and that kind of typical stuff. How do we get them engaged with the community before they're even thinking about moving in and considering it? It sounds like it's kind of the perfect market mix for an opportunity like that to come into place. So, Chef, I was curious, this is not a space that you've ever really been in before. I mean, you created a number of amazing restaurants all throughout Texas. And, what, from your perspective, gave you the impetus to get into this space, to create this partnership with MedCore and kind of create this unique opportunity?
Well, let me back up a little. And correct you a little bit. It's not my first time in retirement community. It's
Oh,
my
okay.
second. And so, and that's probably why I'm here today, because to Tiffany's point earlier, it's interesting how the profile for the retiree has changed. For me, certainly. And when I was invited to consult 3 or 4 years now, I guess, on a project in Dallas, a very high-end luxury place, retirement community, my response was, I don't think I'm the person for that. I've done hotels and airports and museums, but I don't know about retirement community. And so when they showed me the list of folks that were coming to this retirement community, I said, oh, that's my customers.
Yeah.
I mean, literally. And so I thought, okay, it's time to rethink this and think maybe I come to them as opposed to them coming to me. So that was really, so I'm already kind of in the mode, so that when Tiffany called and said, would you like to do something down in Georgetown? I said, sure, let's talk. Because I have retired from operations now. I'm not in ownership, and I want to, I could take on, another project, maybe two, but I mean, another two, but two is good. So,
Right.
So this was an opportunity to sort of feel out Watermark. And to be honest, I did my research, and I had an old employee who was working for Watermark being the operations people behind MedCore in this event, in this venue. And I heard nothing but great things, rave reviews. And so the more I talked to them and interviewed, it just seemed like a good fit. And then, and I don't remember, Tiffany, I don't remember that we immediately started talking about this public facing restaurant, but it seems to me like we kind of phased into it because I was kind of sold on working with MedCore and Watermark. And then we said, this freestanding restaurant or public restaurant, I thought, I've never done this. Tiffany said, we've never done this. I don't think it's been done in this field. So it was kind of a challenge, and it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
And I think we're very excited about the prospects.
Today, I want to tell you about one of Tressel's senior living partners, Belter. Belter is a food service design, equipment, and supply company that has been providing expert guidance to the food and beverage industry for nearly a century. A strategic partner to the most successful food service operations in the country, Belter provides support in kitchen and bar design, equipment procurement and install, and supplies. Their team of senior living food service experts have experience across the continuum of care. From independent living to skilled nursing and CCRCs, Belter specializes in right-sizing new facilities, modernizing remodels, and providing the right food service equipment and supplies. At Belter, they are committed to creating memorable experiences for their customers and their guests. With their top-notch team and a global network of quality supplier partners, their customer-focused approach is built on a foundation of collaboration and decades of industry experience. So thank you for considering Belter for all of your food service needs. No,
we're kind of pioneers, and pioneers are rewarded if they do well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things, in my previous life in operations, as a food and beverage executive, I would always try and teach and coach and train that you need to stop thinking about it as institutional food and start thinking about it as a restaurant, right? And so pushing that thought and trying to get the industry to see that, because of the change with the boomers is so important, and having someone with your background and skills and expertise is only going to push the concepts even further. And so I'm curious, and you guys both can chime in on this. As you're looking through and developing the concept, what were some of the things that you looked at and considered as you thought about creating this as a public restaurant, as opposed to maybe what we've kind of seen in the past, where we're going to keep this inside? It's more of that maybe country club style of it's for the residents / members only, and maybe their guests. So what, from your guys' perspective, went into that thinking of, let's turn this into something more public and open to everyone?
Well, to be quite honest, and Chef and I have talked about this a lot over the last few years that we've been working together, is lessons learned for me and for MedCore is that had we had the right mindset on what this needed to look like from the very beginning, we would have understood the importance of engaging Chef Pyles way earlier than we did. And, it's the best laid plans thing, right? So by the time we started talking on a regular basis about how this partnership would look and how we would integrate Watermark's culinary programming as a subset of Chef Pyles's, and all of the dynamics that brings to the table. It would have helped Chef a lot had we been able to engage him in the very preliminary design stages of the kitchen, of the sizing of all of the venues for culinary. There's about 6 different culinary offerings within this campus. And the main showcase one being Alma by Stephan Pyles. But there's also the culinary venues that are exclusive to the residents living in the community too. So, oh man, I did not know what I was biting off in this whole process. I just knew that we needed to do it. And like you said, like Chef said, as pioneers, you have to be willing to think, okay, here's what we've got, and now what are we going to do with it? And we would not have been able to do this without his direction. I mean, he was able to step in immediately, even though he was like, my goodness, I wish I would have been able to redesign this kitchen or whatever. He was able to step in immediately and say, okay, here's what we need to do. Let's get this in sequence and then let's go. And so it was not necessarily that we had this big master plan. It kind of evolved over time as we started to realize that we needed to rise to the occasion and meet the market need at its gap.
Yeah, and being familiar with the various offerings that Watermark has, they already, from that internal perspective, have some different concepts and some variety there. And so when you started digging into all of that, Chef, what were some of the challenges that you felt needed to be addressed immediately to kind of integrate this new concept you're developing in with Watermark's already existing food and beverage platform?
Well, to Tiffany's point, the main issue was kitchen integration. And we're still, to be honest, at the stage where we're trying to figure that out completely. This, I couldn't tell you. First of all, you said, I think in the beginning, 23 restaurants in 6 cities. That's already even grown. So I'm in, I think 25. I know I'm in 7 cities. So
okay.
Yes, I don't even know how many of those 25 were license agreements, but at least 10 or 12. And so that is not an issue for me. I'm used to doing that. As long as I've got good operators, I can give a product that I am proud of and that we would be proud of. But I'm usually involved in designing the kitchen, and it's not, we're not trying to do more than one concept out of one kitchen. So that's been a challenge and an issue. And so trying to integrate and really understand what those other venues need and how we can facilitate the execution of those sort of simultaneously is what we're continuing to work on, and I think will be our challenge going forth.
Yeah. So when you start thinking about, those operational pieces, one of the things that for me kind of jumps out is now we're starting to integrate this resident meal programming and I'm not sure what their spin down or if they have buy-in or what that looks like. And then integrating that with a, cash credit type of public restaurant. So what are some of the challenges, Tiffany, that you've seen or that you're addressing still maybe as you look at kind of that crossover between all of that?
Well, I think that, and Stephen can speak to this as well, but I think one of the biggest challenges has just been beyond just how the kitchen operations should work optimally for the various venues is how to, two things really, how to hire workers who are basically operating under two different umbrellas, one on a tipped scale and one on a non-tipped scale. So that's been, we've basically had to rewrite a bunch of job descriptions, create a separate human resources guidebook for the tipped positions. And then Stephen has spent a lot of one-on-one time with Watermark on those things. And then the other area that's been, complicated in terms of figuring out a solution is creating a point of sale system infrastructure that will allow us to charge outside customers for the Alma utilization, as well as create a structure for our internal residents to have priority seating and things like that inside the restaurant. So it's been a lot. And again, I credit Chef Pyles with the loads of experience he's had with various markets and various different types of startup situations that have allowed us to work through some of those things.
And I think it's an ongoing process. I think we don't have the answer. We'll have the answer in 6 months, and it's going to be a good answer. It has to be. We don't have any choice. But I've always said, number one, great restaurants are not created in a year. They're certainly not created in a month, 2 months, or 3 months. And I don't think this is a situation that we're going to know fully until we get into it and start playing with it in real time. And so it's kind of exciting, really, because it's something I haven't done. And at this point in my career, I'm all about the challenge and doing something new. So I think, we're going to know more in 6 months than we know today. We've got an idea of what it's going to look like, but I'll guarantee you something's going to veer this way. We're going to say, oh, we didn't think of that. This makes sense. And at some point, it's no different than opening a restaurant, a big restaurant, where, you have no idea when this moment is going to happen, when, everything seems so clunky and you're just pushing this to get this done. And suddenly there's all these people and you're just in this, just free for all. It's very chaotic. And then at some point, weeks in, sometimes rarely days in, but certain weeks in, maybe months in, but something just happens and all of a sudden it just clicks and you think, there it is. Okay. Yeah. And then you start the performance art.
Yeah.
And
you
then
start to feel the flow and the rhythm and everything starts happening. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how this is all going to happen, but I feel comfortable that it will. I just don't know when.
So, Chef, I'm curious, does typically with restaurants, right, you'd like to do a soft opening and kind of work out some of those kinks, and then you kind of do your big grand opening. Does having the opportunity to kind of have this already built-in customer base with these residents for a soft opening, do you think that's going to make that process easier and a little more smooth, or are you just kind of approaching this as it's just the same old restaurant, I just happen to have some extra people to work with?
Well, it's interesting. It's a little of both. I think it's an opportunity for us to have our residents feel like we're doing something really special for them early on, and that they really are, a part of this, a part of the conceptualization of it, the part of the opening. So from that aspect, I think that works to our favor in more than one way. But, it's not hard to find people who want a free meal. So there's no shortage of friends and family when we come to, testing,
I bet. Yeah.
Testing the lab rats.
So it's kind of a great segue, because one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about was the concept of Alma by Stephen Pyles in general, right? Like, we talked a little bit, Tiffany, about it being a little higher end type of restaurant than maybe the Georgetown market has available. But kind of tell the listeners a little bit about what the concept is going to be like, and just give us some details on what the public can expect when it's open to them.
Okay.
I think that's definitely a Stephen question. So go ahead. Go ahead, Chef.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's, I've learned having knowing the Texas market pretty well, certainly the Hill Country, San Antonio and Austin, having done concepts there before. I wouldn't say that this is in a league of its own in Georgetown. I mean, it is, and we can say that between us, but the point is, I really want it to feel like it's a concept. Its uniqueness is about the fact that it is completely developed for Georgetown, and it's a concept that really wouldn't work quite anywhere else, because we're really focusing on local wines and products and culture, the cultural aspects. I'm calling it Texas Hill Country Soul Food.
Okay.
And so, but in terms of price point, I was very careful about making sure that we're right here. We're not any more than any other restaurant in town. We're not lower than the better restaurants, certainly, but we're right there. So I don't want I don't want Alma to feel like this restaurant that is a special occasion restaurant. We're going to go there only for our anniversary. And so I really think our uniqueness there is the fact that it is a concept that you won't find anywhere else there, but not in terms of this very, sort of special evening that you have to get all dressed up for and plan years in advance. It's going to be more casual than that. It's really comfortable. It's about people gathering and sharing food and stories and community. It's really about gathering.
Yeah, I love the idea of capitalizing on the Texas Hill Country local vibe. I mean, that's an area that, if you've not been there, and our listeners, there's a lot of listeners that haven't, but it's a unique, special place, and so I think it's going to be really cool.
And also, let me just say, because obviously I'm not foreign to this idea and this concept. It's one that I kind of helped invent, or at least the style of it. And
Right.
so I've done a lot of it with those 25 or 26, however many restaurants I've opened. There have been a lot of concepts in there, Middle Eastern and Asian and Spanish and, just different sushi. I mean, I've done a lot of different concepts, but I've said this more than once, but what I have learned is to dance with the one that brung you. That's an old Texas saying. And this is what I'm known for. This is what people come to my restaurants expecting.
Yeah.
Texas food, modern Texas food, Southwestern food. In this case, Texas.
Navigator is the largest full-service GPO that exclusively focuses on the senior living community. And what that means is we provide products and services that help our members provide a great environment for their residents, such as like MRO, hospitality equipment, food, business products, as well as technology solutions. We actually surround our members with a level of support unmatched in the industry.
Yeah, I know when I saw the initial news piece about it, and I saw, oh, they got Chef Pyles involved. I was like, this is going to be Texas through and through, because that's what he does. One question I did have for you, Tiffany, because Chef Pyles was talking about the price point, right, and trying to be competitive in the market with that. When you think about having residents and helping maybe to subsidize some of that a little bit, was that a factor in any of this as you were planning, or was that just kind of maybe an afterthought as part of this?
Well, it was a huge part of how we planned it. And that's a great question, because we didn't really know a lot about our target audience when we first started with the concept development. And we had to learn that as we went along and spent more time in the market and with some of the homeowners themselves. And fortunately, the Sun City Community Association was very welcoming of our concept and was excited to have this senior living community being developed right at their doorstep. And so we got a lot of good free information from them, and we worked with them to schedule things that would allow us to ask questions and really make sure that they understood we were partially designing this for them, but anyone can come. And so as we got further into that relationship development process, we realized that even though this is an affluent market, it comprised, Sun City is what I'm talking about, comprised mostly of retirees from larger metropolitan areas like Houston and Dallas and other places, out of state too, of course. They are affluent, but they're not necessarily the type of customer that's interested in people knowing about that. You know what I mean? It's just they're this very down to earth group of people that have settled in the hill country for a reason, and it is to have a low key lifestyle. It's to enjoy family and friends. It's to create new networks of friends, and it's to have fun doing it. So this goes hand in hand with what Stephen just said, is we knew that we can't offer something that comes across as pretentious to the marketplace, because this is not Georgetown is not a pretentious market. Neither are the Sun City homeowners. And so we had to strike this careful balance of feeling like this venue matched their preferences and stylistic tendencies, but also to create a food offering that was superior to anything they could get in the area. And I think that they are, because we have spent quite a bit of time with them, and Chef Pyles has gone down to Georgetown on multiple occasions now to do meet and greets and showcase events and tastings and such. I think that there's this heightened level of expectation that this is going to be a cornerstone of how they identify with their relationship with the Hacienda at Georgetown as a whole. Yeah. And so I'm really pleased with how it's coming together, even though I do agree with Stephen that who knows, there's so much that we have to trial in the next few months as we get ready to go live. But we certainly have a well-informed and willing customer base. And even one of the last events that the local team there at the Hacienda participated in around the holidays, the mayor of Georgetown was present at that event. And he actually went up to our executive director and said, "All I really want to know is, when can I make my reservations on Open Table for Alma?"
So that's actually, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Just to add to what Tiffany said, Alma is such a part of Hacienda. I mean, it's freestanding. It's anybody hopefully will come from Austin or points from wherever, but it really is for Hacienda. And we, in deliberating on a name, typically I try to be very local and see what's going on. And we did research into the history of Georgetown and the rivers and the terrain, and what are some names that would be indicative of being there in Georgetown in the Hill Country. And I kind of came back to the fact that it's Hacienda, that's Spanish. And so how do we relate that? What is Alma? It's the heart, it's the soul. So Alma really is Spanish for heart or soul, I mean. And so it's very much a part of, the gathering, the meeting, the Hacienda. That's the heart and soul of it.
Yeah, I think a concept like this and a project like this, if you don't keep it connected and tied into the community, it's going to feel separate and kind of exterior to it. And so I think what you're saying about creating that kind of global feel within the community, as that's what it's for, and it's also available to the public, I think will be a huge success. So kind of as we wrap up here, Tiffany, I was going to ask you, the mayor had mentioned, when can I make reservations on Open Table? So tell us a little bit about what we can expect from a timetable for this to become a reality.
Yeah, it's bearing down on us. It's just right around the corner, and we're expecting to receive our food establishment permit this month. So that will be obviously, as you well know, being in the industry for so long, that'll be a big milestone to check off. And then as we speak, Chef Pyles is assisting the Watermark team with their infrastructure setup, their testing. They're about to do POS testing next week and training. And then they've been installing smallwares, equipment, and doing all of those final rush to the finish line items in order to start our trial phase of internal resident soft launch in February. So we hope to have, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we hope to have our soft launch completed by end of February, early March?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we're recording this at the start of January. And so, that's a pretty short timetable. I mean, you guys are well on the way, and that's super exciting. So,
it's been a lot of hurry up and wait. I mean, we started
Yes.
this thing 2 years ago.
Definitely understand that.
And it was originally, but this is so typical, open in the fall. Well, a little later in the fall.
Mhm.
Okay, it's very
Yeah.
typical. But it feels like we've been at this forever, doesn't it, Tiffany?
It does. I think I've aged 72 years since we started.
Any future projects that you guys are thinking about or looking at, or that you can share at this time, maybe?
We're always looking at potential projects, and I know that Chef and I have had conversations about, if the market is right, let's talk. And so that's still the case. There are a couple that we're looking at right now, but we aren't far along enough in them that I can share with you yet. But I hope that we can pretty soon.
And my only request from Tiffany was get me involved sooner.
Yeah. Now I know.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I try to tell operators that I work with is, like, when you're planning your food service programming and your restaurants and your kitchens, like, get those experts in first. I don't know how many times I walked into a plan that was done and I go, what are you doing? This is backwards and upside down, and the flow should be 90 degrees different. And it's just, I think you guys are absolutely on that. And so, as we're kind of wrapping up, how can listeners reach out, learn more about the project, get more specifics on opening dates, things like that, and learn more about what you guys are doing in general? So,
well, the website for sure. We have an Alma website that is just launched, but there's a Hacienda website as well. What would you say, Tiffany?
Yeah, those are the most developed out resources at this time, is to go on Hacienda at Georgetown.com. There's also a link on the homepage to Alma. And we just launched the Alma restaurant website so that it can function as a separate website as well. And then if anyone wants additional information, they can feel free to reach out to either Chef Pyles or myself on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to respond or provide any additional insight if they're thinking about doing something similar.
Great. Well, hey, this is an exciting project. This is, frankly, from my standpoint, this is the future of what we should be doing in senior living, bringing in amazing experts like Chef Pyles to create those experiences for our residents. So, Tiffany, Chef Pyles, I thank both of you for joining me today here on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
So there you have it, another one in the books. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.